So today I want to share with you a portion of a really insightful academy training we had on professional branding this month. And listen, I believe that our brand is really our promise. It's the covenant that we make to our client. It's so important. Our brand really is the organizing principle that ties together your presence in the marketplace. It informs every decision you make. What services or treatments to offer, policies, operations, sales, creative, etc. So it basically states, when you come and work with us, XYZ will happen. It's truly your promise to your client. And those of you who have been through my boot camps have heard me say that your brand reputation is really what your customer or your consumer says about you behind your back. But this doesn't have to be something out of your control. When you intentionally position your brand, you capture and lock in on your own position in the marketplace to establish your business in a category of one. So in this training today, I'll give you a sneak peek into the top 8 ways to power position your brand in your space. If after you listen to this episode and you feel like you would like some support positioning your practice in a way that cuts through rather than contribute to the noise in your saturated industry, I'd love the opportunity to get my brain in your business and help you create some seductive branding to powerfully articulate your message, create a differentiated offer, and attract your dream clients. If this sounds like something you would like to partner on, please schedule a free, no-pressure strategy call with me through the link in the show notes, or you can send me a DM on Instagram to set up a time to connect. And I hope you enjoy this episode, number 24, How to Power Position Your Brand. Hi there, welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go.
So the first piece to branding your business is the internal branding. And this is a lot of the work that we have been doing over the past several weeks and months, okay? Because I used the analogy last week of the flower as it blossoms, where we're planting seeds and there's a stem and a leaf. And really what our consumer sees is just the very inside flower once it blossoms and it's ready to give pollen to bees. And this, I thought of another analogy would be similar to the tip of an iceberg, right? Like this is 10% of the iceberg you see here that's actually visible. That's very similar to what happens as a consumer. We really only see what is marketed to us, right? But the actual brand, the heartbeat, the lifeblood behind what's going to drive those marketing decisions and the strategies is all built behind the scenes, and that has to happen internally and has to happen from you as a leader who is really the leader of the brand, the protector of the brand. Nobody else is going to really understand and protect your brand like you. That is up to you as a business leader. Okay. And so some of the things that go into internal branding are your mission, really what's the purpose of your business, your vision, where are you going in the long term? What is the goal of the business? The values, what do you most admire and believe in? And the people and the philosophy that you have behind what your business stands for. The manifesto we created that really ties all of these pieces together. And then today, what we're going to talk about is how to position yourself in the market. And a lot of times we think this just happens like, oh, I showed up and this is where I have to price myself, because if I price myself too low, they're not going to come to me. If I price too high, they're not going to come to me. We're not really sure what our strategy is. So today I want to educate you a little bit behind really the top strategies behind positioning your brand and really how to use a positioning strategy to power up your business. So today, let's talk through the top 8 power positioning strategies. Number 1 is competitive branding. And so really, I'll talk through as I go through each of these, some of the pros and cons of the different components of these. Really, with competitive branding, what you're trying to do is talk to the pain point of your customer as it relates to the competitor's offer. And the cool advantage to this is that you really get to almost expose the gaps that your competitor has without having to talk trash on them, You also can show your customer, really make them problem aware ahead of time. Like maybe there was something that they weren't necessarily thinking about that was going to be a problem if they went to the competitor. And so you're getting them early through that process. And the other thing you can do when you position yourself as a competitive brand is you can leverage awareness that that brand has already created in the market. So for example, if you're going competitively against the market leader who happens to be in your space, then you can use sort of a talk track and a branding strategy to say, well, we're not like them, and here's why that's a good thing, right? And so I've seen this done well in our space as an example in a couple different ways. I worked with a client who was really a young plastic surgeon kind of going up against a leader, a very established surgeon in his marketplace. And so he would simply use kind of the line, his patient care coordinator would say stuff like, when you come for your follow-up appointments, you're always going to talk to our doctor. You're not going to go talk to a PA or a nurse practitioner. You're going to be able to have one-on-one time. I've seen other physicians leverage this, like, you will only be injected by MDs here. And the reality is probably as they scale their business, they're going to want to delegate and leverage, other nurse injectors. But at this point in time, they really felt like this is a differentiating factor. This is where we're going to be able to pull a patient in. The example of you could go to the leader, but you're not going to really be with the leader along your journey of patient aftercare. And that might be something that the patient really hadn't thought of, but they become problem aware and then they start to think about it and they know, well, hey, I want to have an MD take care of me, or maybe it's using an anesthesiologist in the OR versus a CRNA or something to that effect, where you're kind of like wedging up against the competition to identify a gap that would work in your favor. So one company that did this extremely well was when the Dollar Shave Club came in and, really took Gillette head on, Gillette, the industry leader, and said, look, you don't need to pay a premium for these really great razor blades, right? You can have top quality delivered to your house. Just get on the subscription model with us, right? And so really tapping into, you're paying a little too much and it's not convenient for you. And so really putting themselves up against Dollar Shave Club versus Gillette and going after Gillette's market share, and also comparing themselves to Gillette. Number 2 is hyper specialization. So when you hyper specialize, or, we talk about niching down or niching down, depending on the way you like to pronounce it, right? Quite a bit. So the cool thing about becoming hyper specialized is that you're really going to attract that certain type of consumer who prefers specificity. They really like to go to that place that is just the very best at that one thing. Okay. And what you see happens during that is that it really illustrates this halo effect. And I'll get into that on the next slide. In order to hone in on this type of branding, you have to have very clear and concise marketing. And a really great example of a company who did this is Vantis Institute, who happens to be in our academy. And, they have a really special proprietary method for combining scar camouflaging with SMP for hair regrowth. And they basically branded themselves as like this non-surgical option for treating hair loss. So the patient doesn't have to go to go through the whole length of having a surgical hair transplant. They can come in and have like that once very specialized type of procedure. And oh, by the way, while they're there, they're going to get Botox, IV therapy, etc. I really want to quickly talk to you about this halo effect, because this is something you'll see. Really, you could incorporate this into many of these different types of branding or these branding strategies, but particularly when you're hyper niching down, hyper specializing, or you're going for a leadership market position. So the halo effect is really a cognitive bias in which our overall impression of a person influences our opinion of their message. So we're really not as much listening at that point when that person shows up and has that halo, so to speak, on, we kind of just believe everything they say. So, a really great example of that is when you see a beautiful woman walk in a room, or somebody that has a super fit body and she looks toned and she's like literally the person that you want to look like or be like. And so instead of really doing your research to know whether, that person has the best information or is the right fit for you, you kind of look at them and you're like, she's in really great shape or he's in really great shape and I want to look like them. And so I'm going to assume that they're an expert because, they embody the outcome that I desire. Now, with that halo effect, we gave the example of Vantis Institute, and you see this with doctors who will go on TV and, consumers will be like, oh, well, they just must be the best, and so they kind of don't listen to what they say, not advocating for that as a strategy, but giving examples of how when somebody's in a certain position or role that consumers may end up going to them for this effect, this halo, this kind of like cognitive bias that they carry about that person because of the impression that they have or the business, right? And that it just certainly influences them. And I think our Academy member, Vantis Institute, has done this extremely well. And, they're a young company and they're certainly iterating and they've come in with something a bit disruptive as well. But what they do really well is they only market this specialized procedure. But what they do offer when you walk into their practice, there's a whole wellness center. There's a room where they do IV infusion and wellness visits and B12 shots. And then there's a non-surgical injectable room, and there's a nurse who does Botox fillers, etc. So they have all these other things to offer, but patients are really flying in. They're really targeting that one specific candidate that is going to be the perfect fit for them in their business. And then that person sees like what the great results that they're already getting, and then they're getting other procedures while they're there. And this is actually number 3, which is leader-based positioning. And this is really reserved for the premium brands, for the ones who have just climbed their way to the very top. They're the most established. They have the most market share. They've maybe been in business the longest, maybe not, but they are really coming in and choosing to claim their stake, right? Like we're putting our flag in the ground here and we own this space. We own this category. We own this market, right? And that could be a market of an industry, a piece of an industry, a category. It could be a geography, but they're showing up as a leader. They're acting like a leader. They're talking like a leader. And they believe that they're a leader. And so they've really established themselves in a dominant position. And ultimately, it is reserved to, this is going to be somebody who wants to be known as a premium brand. They want to be a leader. They're probably going to be positioning their prices the highest. They're going to offer the highest quality. They're going to have the highest quality team. And obviously the things that they're offering to the market are going to be the most cutting edge. Now, these leaders are also the most susceptible to being knocked off by the young disruptors. But ultimately, that's, if you want to be a leader, this is really a great place to be kind of looking to go over time as you build your business, right? And so I'll ask you this question to really think about, and probably something you've thought about at one point, but have you recently? Who is the leader in your space or your specialty? Perhaps you feel like you are the leader or you should be the leader. Or perhaps you know and learn and mentor from the leader. But who is it? So great example of a company who has positioned themselves as a market leader is Rolex. They're a premium brand. Everything they produce is a premium product, and they really have market dominance. The next one is low price based. Okay. Now, this is not my favorite for many reasons, but I want to make sure I let you know that this is obviously an option and that many brands do position themselves as the lowest price. So they simply know we want to be the low price leader, and we are going to make sure that we brand ourselves, we market ourselves, and we communicate that we have the lowest prices to the consumer that comes in. So they know when they come here, they're not going to have to shop around. They can come right here and get the lowest price. Okay. So benefits to lower prices is that you can serve a broader audience, right? Pretty much everybody can afford the lowest price. So you know that I don't have to be super picky about who I'm marketing to. I'm simply marketing on price. Pricing is really equivalent to perception. So we think of really quality. When we think of pricing and we see a low price, we tend to, as a consumer, automatically relate the entry price or the purchase price of something to the quality of it. And so you may be perceived, if you're the low price leader, as really a quick fix. This is where you happen to see a lot of like these Groupon patients that will come in, and there happens to be a certain consumer that really just shops for the lowest price. Now, the downside to this is that this is really the lowest barrier to entry of all of these branding strategies, because simply another company can just come in and offer the same product at a lower price and attract those same clients who are ultimately shopping for a low price. And you really are going to have to cut down the quality to be able to refine your margins, right? Because what happens is if you offer a really high quality product at a low price, then you end up with high cost margins and low profits. And this is a very slippery slope, because remember, what profits are doing is actually feeding the business, feeding the innovation, the marketing, the growth of the business. That's how we pay our people. And so that becomes a very slippery slope. This also can become very exhausting, because at lower margins, you're going to have to service more and more people. And so this is kind of where I have to see the most burnout happen as practices come in to try to play this pricing game. And it can be very tempting when someone walks into your practice and says, well, I went to so-and-so, or I'm going to go to this other business because they're going to offer me a lower price, and you feel vulnerable or susceptible to losing them. But ultimately, when you look at the big picture of the business, it doesn't have the same financial health as a business, or really personal health as a business who positions themselves on a higher price strategy. Okay, so an example of a low price business branding strategy is the Dollar Tree. You basically know you're going to go in there and get whatever you want for about $1, a couple bucks, right? You're going to go find low priced items. You're certainly not shopping there for fine china. It is certainly a brand strategy. You know what you're going to get. There's no confusion in there. You don't feel like I have to go shop around to find out if I can get something cheaper than Dollar Tree. Pretty much know you're going to get the cheapest. So then I want to talk about high price-based branding. And this is something I'm a very big proponent of. And one of the strategies that I really try to teach in the academy is the benefits of raising your prices to meet your consumer, right? Now, with higher prices, you're going to end up with a narrower audience, because not everybody can afford a high price product or service. But again, the same principle applies with pricing as low pricing to high pricing, which is the perception piece, right? And so we have a perception when something is priced high, that it's higher quality, that it would last longer, that I'm going to get better results with it. This also is the highest barrier to entry. So we have the most protection from our competitors, right? From a competitor swooping in on us when we build a business model that has a higher price point, because of who? I'll get to that next. But not everybody can afford high quality. And so you're going to end up attracting people who like that high quality product. They're higher end clients. They absolutely appreciate and love the service that you give to them. They love that you're skilled. They love your expertise. And these types of clients also happen to be the best referrers, right? They fall in love with the outcome. And so they happen to really only refer to you and not refer to so many different places, because it's very clear, I'm coming in, I'm paying my good money. And this strategy can be combined with other strategies. This is really more of like, how do you want to be perceived in the market? And by the way, when I talk about high price versus low price, it may simply be that you're just higher priced, a bit higher priced than your closest competitor, right? And so you're perceived as the better quality or have a better offer. And so we've talked before, and we'll continue as we go into sales and marketing modules, but to talk about how to leverage these pricing strategies to build that perception of quality, but also offer a lot of value so that patient is in fact getting more when they come to you than your competitor as well. So this is just, to the point of high price, right? So this is not a knockoff, but like a secondhand retailer, right? Like a couture outlet, online outlet, and they have this Hermès Birkin bag for sale for $70,000, okay? Now, if you saw this Birkin bag for $10,000 or call it even $7,000, you probably would be like, I'm not sure if that's real. And certainly if it was $700, you'd be like, there's no way I'm going to spend my $700 and really even my $7,000 on this, because I'm questioning the quality of this product. But when it's $70,000, I'm getting this beautiful crocodile with these gold embellishments. And I'm also going to feel significant because I'm going to be the only one who has it, right? So when you're looking at a high pricing strategy, you're looking not only at presenting yourself as a high quality product, but also going to attract the right who. And that is so important in a branding strategy, because You want to make sure that you attract your right type of client, the clients who appreciate you, the clients who are willing to spend more money because they believe in what you're about, what you have to offer, but also the right employees, the employees that are going to represent your brand appropriately, and everybody else that you do business with, right? They're going to rise up to the occasion because they believe in this kind of higher quality, higher end clientele philosophy. All right, the next type of branding is value positioning, okay? And so this is really an incredible place to be, but it is one of the most challenging brand strategies to execute. And this is a very strong position to own. This is basically saying, I'm going to give you the highest quality at the lowest price possible, okay? And this is very difficult. You can rarely just come into the market right there. When you do come in intentionally as a value brand, you have to be very, very particular about the way that you market. And this comes from having a very intimate relationship or familiarity with your target client. So you have to really know what their needs are, right? In order to offer value, you have to know what is valued. What do they actually want? And then price that at the right, really knowing your numbers. Typically, the brands that do this well, they know what their highest margin procedures are, and they do more marketing toward that, really that 80-20 rule. Really great thing about this brand strategy is that it drives word of mouth referrals because people really like to talk about the value that they got, right? It's kind of like, think of a great vacation you went on. Like, oh, I went to Kauai and, I did this. So was a timeshare, which I don't recommend, the timeshare tour, but we ended up buying a timeshare. And then at the end, they were like, oh, if you want to send this offer to, any of your friends to come here, it'll be like $500 for the week, And we're like, yeah, that's great. So we've had more friends go to that for that timeshare thing just because of the great value. So that's an example I think we can all relate to. But basically, the point is that we're looking to offer a really high quality product at the best rate. And in order to do this, you have to really have a lucrative business that it's cash positive, that you know your business well, you know your numbers well, you know what's driving producing profit in your business, and you know your clients so well, right? So like you actually know why they would prefer to come to you and what they would prefer to pay versus somebody else. Okay. And so a company that has done this extraordinarily well in our academy is Waltzman Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery. And they have really tweaked and reiterated the brand quite a bit, but this is really the positioning model that they have established is really affordable luxury is their brand promise. So they know their clients when they come in, they really get kind of like the top-notch high quality based on their experience when they come in, the outcomes that they're getting, but it's at a reasonable price compared to the rest of the market. And he's able to do that for all of the reasons that we talked about before. So the next brand strategy is disruptive. And this has really become more and more popular as the tech industry has ramped up. And in order to come in and disrupt, this is a really, really strong strategy because you are likely going to capture a big portion of market share very quickly. But there are some things that you have to do. You have to really know the gap in the market. You have to identify what is going to disrupt the market. What is missing in the way that a product or service is being delivered currently that I could do a little bit differently or do better. And what you're really going to do is steer away from those industry norms. So I see my industry, everybody does it this certain way, and we're not doing it that way anymore. And so you're really making a strong statement in your industry. When you represent a disruptive brand, you're really recognized for ingenuity. You're kind of known, you're like a mini thought leader in your little disruptive space because you're thinking outside the box and people really enjoy that. You could, in fact, with little tweaks in your business or in your approach, create a whole new category in your space. Now, in order to do this, it really does require high-level conceptual thinking and first-class execution. And a company that did that extremely well is Uber, who completely disrupted the taxi industry. And then now you've had, they were first to market, and then now you've seen Lyft and et cetera, et cetera. And then the next strategy is convenience. And again, this has become more relevant in the past 10 years or so because of social media and technology and access to everything, news and information at our fingertips. And what we have now is a lower attention span. We want instant gratification. And so there's a really good chunk of consumers who really buy based on convenience. I know I'm one of them, right? Like I have an app we have a company down the street called Revolve. I can order something from them through my app. It's shipped overnight and it's on my doorstep. And so I don't have to think ahead, like, what am I going to want to wear in 2 weeks or a month, right? Like it's right there. Boom, I get the ad, I buy it, and it literally shows up the next day. And they've made returns so convenient for me. All I have to do is pop it back in the bag. The label's already there, and I just go drop it off at a UPS and it's done. And so it's just a super, super simple process. It's very convenient for me. And I'm certainly willing to pay more for that type of convenience because I'm super busy, right? So if you're looking to adopt this type of brand positioning model, you might be thinking about, is there one step in the process that I could simply eliminate, right? So when you're thinking of like that patient experience journey and that whole process that the patient goes through to have to get to know you, have to call your practice, have to come in for the consultation, right? Like how could you simply eliminate one of these little steps so that that patient can feel like they are having a more convenient experience with you? And one company that did this extremely well is the Dry Bar. And they just decided, look, no cuts, no color, just blowouts. And they have an app and you don't have to book an appointment to go get a hair blow dry. You could just book the app like literally in an hour. And they've got stylists on demand waiting there for you. You're going to pay a premium, but it's just super easy. Like I'm not in the mood to do my hair today, or I've got a thing tonight and I want to, feel super fresh. I'm going to just run to the Dry Bar. Are their blowouts better than anybody else's? Not really. They're the same type of thing. They're a blow dry. Like it's literally a blow dry. And, there's kind of a cool experience when you're in there and they have their retail products that they sell. And now you can get a glass of champagne and watch a movie while you're sitting there. But honestly, it's a blow dry, but it's super convenient. So what I want you to remember is that as you're listening through this and you're probably thinking, where is my brand? What is the brand strategy that I have adopted to position myself in the market? You may have started one way and you think you want to be known for something else, and that's okay. And that's actually a really good thing because like we talked about last week, brands are not invented, they're really uncovered. And it takes a little bit of time to get to know your market, get to know your client, get to know yourself, and then really develop an intentional brand positioning strategy when, you may reinvent yourself over time. And the best way that you go about doing that is through then once you have established your brand, through messaging. And so that's what we'll get into next week. So what I want you to work on for your homework this week are these top steps to uncovering your brand. So number one, identifying what is the gap in your market. Number two, what do you want to be known for? Number three, what problem are you solving? Number four, how will you price your offers compared to your competition? And this is a really important one. Number five, what do your ideal clients think about your competitors? And if you're not sure, then you need to ask around and do a little bit of market research to find out, because this is going to be a really important piece to positioning yourself. It's very difficult to position yourself against a competitor or somewhere in a market when you don't fully understand the market. So if you don't, then I want you to take that as your homework, and own that as your homework this week. And then finally, based on these discoveries, which strategy will you use to power position your brand? Will you be a convenience brand? Will you be a value brand? Will you be a market leader? Once you have established that, then it's time to really communicate and articulate how you can, with emotion, help solve that consumer's problem. And we're going to do that through the art of seductive messaging next week.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Fierce Factor. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure you subscribe so you can automatically get new shows every week. I'd also love it if you left us a review. And come join the conversation online. If you're an aesthetic industry owner, operator, or leader, please join my free Facebook group, The Tribe of Fierce Aesthetic Leaders, a community of ambitious, purpose-driven professionals who collaborate and share best practices for growth in business and life. I'm honored you tuned in.